the webinar, and then we try always. I mean, my focus will always be to bring it back, and I know you're all experienced panelists / moderators, so you know the job of and communications, of course, opens the scope to talk about everything and do anything we want, but we have to always bring it back, think about communications, the context, and the takeaways. Yes.
Can I ask a quick question? Will you be directing questions specifically to us or just out? Specifically directly to each panelist? Okay, because I've just noticed on these Zoom conferences, sometimes it's a bit more tricky because we're not sitting next to each other. So
exactly. No. I will address you by name. No worries.
Okay.
Okay. So thank you. I believe we're live, Basma.
Yes.
Is everyone here?
Yes.
Is Badr back? No. Should we wait for him or? Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. Welcome to the UNWTO Middle East webinar on communicating crisis during and post COVID-19. I hope you and your families are doing well in these special times, and Ramadan Mubarak to everyone. I'm glad to see that we have many participants today from the public, private sector, media, and academia who have joined us for this webinar. As you all know, this pandemic have shaken the global economy, and UNWTO and the tourism sector worldwide are committed to support all measures taken to curb the outbreak. Our key message at the UNWTO is stay at home today so we can travel tomorrow. Our main campaign is travel tomorrow for those who are following us. We have effectively shown our sector's commitment to staying at homes and putting people's health first while we map recommendations for the sector. On the socio-economic front, a global recession with loss of 1 million jobs is expected internationally and regionally, as we can all see. The pandemic is a challenge we must face together. Our response must be consistent and collective. Tourism under the leadership of the UNWTO will once more be there to help people and communities recover from the setback. We need to ensure that no one is left behind, but we can only achieve that if we act now together, collaborating in the spirit of solidarity around common goals. The economic activity in this sector is different. It's an integral part of the Sustainable Development Agenda. Tourism will play a key role in future recovery efforts. As our Secretary General, Mr. Zoura Pololakashvili, said, that tourism has shown many times its power to recover. This is a sector that has to lead job creation and helps build trust, must be part of all recovery efforts. Our Secretary General also addressed tourism ministers at the G20 group a few days ago and encouraged urging immediate and joint actions. During this time, media have proven to be the key driver for passing information, for awareness, preventing rumors, and also helping people even to develop new hobbies as well. Before I give the virtual floor to Mr. Marcelo Risi, the Director for Communications at the UNWTO, I would like to welcome the panelists who are joining us in this webinar and give you a brief introduction about them. We have Mr. Mudassir Ahmed. Mudassir is the managing partner of Unitas Communications. In addition, he's also the president of the Concordia Forum, the chairman of Unitas Risk, a fellow at the German Marshall Fund and on advisory boards at the Faiths Forum for London, Atlantic Council US, INAM Greece, IAYP US, ISTAC Malaysia, and IRM Pakistan. We have also Ms. Rana Arafa as an Egyptian television personality. She's the #1 sought after bilingual presenter in Egypt, working in the entertainment industry as a presenter and master of ceremony for corporate events and conferences. She's the presenter at Sada El Balad, Orbit Alpha Channel, 10 TV, OTV, and Rotana Music. She has worked in every aspect of a client's campaign, from presenting public appearances, hosting voiceovers, social media. Furthermore, she's a women empowerment activist and an influencer and a moderator. We also have Ms. Rebecca Anna Proctor. Rebecca is a freelance journalist, presenter, and consultant. Until 2019, she was editor-in-chief of Harper's Bazaar Art and Harper's Bazaar Interiors. Her professional experience ranges from a wide variety of mediums, working from ArtNet News, Arab News, and others. We also have 3 special guests who are joining us today. We have Dr. Ahmed Turkestani, an assistant professor of mass communication from Al Imam University in Saudi Arabia. We have Mr. Mr. Badr Ahmed Al-Sharhan, Deputy Chief Editor for English News Service, Kuwait Press Agency, KONA, known as KONA. We also have Ms. Lamia Mouafi, a reporter from the Egyptian TV. They will be later joining this discussion after our panelists. We're sure that tourism will be okay and reactivated first locally and then regionally. New products and new travel segments will be created. This is something we promise you and we can confirm, and it can only be done with our joint efforts and cooperation. I will now give the virtual floor to my colleague, Mr. Marcelo Risi. Marcelo?
Thank you. Thank you, Basma, and thank you to all our virtual panelists and virtual participants. We understand that we have a full house. Zoom is full, and others can follow this through YouTube. This is another webinar focused on communications crisis in the COVID context that we're holding. We're having regional webinars on this topic. We're identifying certain common patterns in all regions, but then of course, every region has its own realities as we know. So we wish to really offer you the concrete takeaways that this is relevant to understand really as we know, the uncharted territory that we're moving in. And it's also to a certain extent, when we talk about so-called crisis communications or communications in general, and in tourism, uncharted territory. We're moving as we go, especially with in UNWTO, we get the proverbial question around the crystal ball. When will it end? What do I do? What will tourism look like? We don't know. We know that trust is key, and we know that we will have to go really step by step as we approach any solution. So I will be conducting this, moderating this discussion. We will be diving in directly to really to the topics at hand. And my question directly, and I would like to give the floor to Rebecca, who's based out of Dubai. And of course, really, Dubai, needless to say, what it stands for in terms of tourism and the power of this sector, the visibility in which we really goes beyond tourism. So my basic question, and this I've been making in all regions, Rebecca, what's the tourism story to be told when there is no tourism really happening?
Well, thank you, Marcello, and thanks everyone for having me. And it's obviously a great topic, a topic that we're speaking about a lot. It's a difficult question. And Dubai has, we were under a 24-hour lockdown until about a week ago. And the country has eased this 24-hour lockdown, partially because the economy really rests on tourism, and business is extremely at risk. The cases have continued to mount regardless, but it should be noted that Dubai has really banked. It's spent years and years of turning itself into the Middle East, main business and tourism hub, including one of the world's prominent places for tourism, really attracting, through beaches and luxury hotels, high-end malls. It's really a destination. Also, the airport is a place where everyone comes and travels. It's literally probably, I think it's been voted the world's busiest airport. Dubai last year received if I have this correctly, it's according to Bloomberg, 16.7 million tourists last year, according to official estimates. So that's huge. So it's taking a hit, but the tourism story is that they proclaimed last week that they're hoping to get the country ready for tourism in July. And hotels are open. I live right now, I'm at my home in the Palm Jumeirah, and I live in between the Waldorf Astoria and the Anantara Hotel, and they're opening. I see people there, they're having lunches, having dinners. It is true that Emirates is not allowing for any passenger flights until July, apparently, unless something changes. But at least for now, the city is dedicated to start the reopening process. In terms of tourism, yes, I think that as I'm sure everybody will agree, we're looking at a huge lag. Well, I don't know if we'll get back to the tourism like it was pre-COVID for the next 3 to 5 years. But what I do see, and I think this is maybe I hope some sort of form of silver lining, while it will be much more difficult to travel, even to a place like, Dubai. All of us are so used to just hopping on and off the plane. I did it almost every week. But I'm looking at sort of different, especially high-end luxury hotel chains that are trying to be more creative in the way that they right now sell their products, which I'm sure we'll speak about later in the panel, and trying to be a bit more authentic in terms of their brand's offerings. Right now, tourism is just catered to people residing in the UAE. I think this will change in July, but tourism will continue, but it will definitely not reach, the levels that it was pre-crisis, I think, for a few years. So people need to adapt through creative and innovative means, which means digital awareness as well.
Thank you so much for this first input, Rebecca. Egypt is another huge tourism nation, and then we have Rana Rafa here, and of course this is a standard line when we, with the World Tourism Organization, talk about the economic importance of tourism. The revenues from international tourism in Egypt represent more foreign exchange income than what the Suez Canal traffic generates, for instance. So much for the importance of tourism for Egypt. Now, Rana, really, as a journalist, media personality in Egypt, with its huge tourism sector, how have you experienced, really, as a legacy mainstream journalist, the debates around tourism? Rebecca was course, mentioning that we will come back. Dubai is getting ready to travel tomorrow, which is our campaign, as everybody knows. But what's really the tourism discussion, if any at all, in the media, in the wider public, in Egypt at this moment? Is there any serious talk about this and how we will reinventing the sector down the line?
Yes, yes, of course there is. Well, first of all, thank you so much for Yani, giving me the chance to be with you today and giving, I hope, an added value to the discussion through my experience in communication. And as Rebecca said, I mean, this stage just brought us to a pause, us globally. Nowadays, we are appreciating the basics that we had and we took for granted. I think we're in a very fluid, let's say, stage where things are unknown. As for what's happening now with the tourism, yes, of course, I think we are in Egypt soon will be back to normal. The government, from my point of view, is putting strategies and plans for recovery. I think we have been trying to go digital 3 years ago. The government has been trying to go educationally digital and also through government services. And I think this stage has speeded up this process. So yes, I think that digitally we have went somewhere else. We've been using different platforms to find solutions. We have been integrating a lot of entrepreneurs, like the Healing Solution campaign that you have launched through the UNWTO. So yes, I think we are doing so. The point here is not the channels of communicating. I think the point here is we're looking for the content. Nowadays, we see so many channels of communicating, whether TikTok, whether Zoom, the one we're on now, so many channels. The point now is we're thinking of the content to deliver. And I think that's what's crucial. Now, in Egypt, we are trying to find creative content to be able to get out of what we are in now. The recovery strategy is all about how to create the perfect content. The perfect content to attract tourism around the world and to be able to, let's say, sell the domestic tourism. As you know, after we get out of this stage, most people will be traveling domestically.
Thank you. Very interesting. Rebecca mentioned digital. You mentioned digital.
Yes, of course.
Let's see if Mudassar also mentions digital. But I think what I'm hearing out of here is really the not being frustrated by this challenge, but rather more viewing the challenge that we're going through as a catalyst.
I think I'm very sorry to
improve.
Yes, of course. I think Egypt has gone through a lot of crises and we've overcome the crises. And I think tourism is one of the areas or one of the fields that recovers so fast. So with Egypt getting over so many crises the past years, and with tourism, I think we will pass this and we will recover very fast. I think we're much more better than before. I think we're more optimistic, I think.
Thank you. Mudassar, over to you. Really from drawing on your expertise on really crisis communications or resilience communications, as the marketeers like to call it, because we don't want to mention crisis when we try to. But okay, that's another debate. But still, is this something true to crisis communications? I mean, trying to seize the moment, seeing the opportunity to rethink, to reboot, to catalyze maybe some process that's being like stalled or stuck somehow, really to getting as far ahead of the curve as we can.
Thank you, Marcelo. First of all, thank you so much, UNWTO, for organizing this wonderful webinar. It's an honor to be amongst such a distinguished panel and amongst so many international guests. Your question is very, very pertinent. And if I understand it correctly, I'm absolutely of view that although we are facing an unprecedented crisis in the tourism industry, my city, I'm dialing in from London today. London receives 30 million tourists a year, you know, and right now that number's gone down to virtually zero. So this is playing out, of course, in Egypt, as Rana has mentioned, and of course, as Rebecca's mentioned, in Dubai. And everybody has different levels of optimism with regards to how the recovery is going to take place. And like you said earlier on, no one can be absolutely sure. Of course, we're seeing, and I'm sure we'll get into this later, we're seeing the industry adapt. But in terms of the communications issue, I think what's interesting to remember is that fear is reigning supreme right now. The tourism industry, to survive, has to be rooted in the narrative of hope. And when I talk about fear, I talk about this fear of other cultures, of foreign cultures, of, especially in my country, right? There has been a backlash against people of Chinese origin, for instance. In America, you're seeing a backlash against, this increase in rhetoric, populist rhetoric, of how the certain individuals in that country are trying to create a backlash against other countries. And I think this is going to increase. We're living in a world where international order is breaking down. International institutions and their effectiveness are no longer being posited in a forward sense, and they're no longer being believed in. So I think the job of the tourism industry in terms of communication has to be about selling hope, selling understanding, selling the fact that we as an industry are about connecting cultures, bringing people together and making the world smaller. And I know we've been doing that already. Tourism industry has been doing that a lot anyway. I think this crisis represents an opportunity at a time when the world is very fearful to remind people of what's beautiful again.
I'm taking notes. Thank you. Thank you. No, very pertinent. Now, of course, we need to balance this out. I was paying close attention, of course, to everybody, but Rebecca was mentioning she's observing hotels reopening gradually, business or leisure lunches and meetings taking place. So I hope with the responsible way, with social distancing and the long list of do's and don'ts that we have in these circumstances. But Rebecca, really being in such a tourism hotspot and knowing the sector so intimately as you do you think the tourism sector is really aware of its social responsibility? Because one thing is to have it as a marketing tagline. Of course, we know that we represent probably the most really cross-cutting sector there is, because the value chain of tourism is so complex and so deeply rooted. But when it comes to really taking action as now and following the thought that Mudassar was sharing with us, do you think the tourism sector is up to the level in terms of really embracing all this true social responsibility? Because we're talking hope, we're talking people to people, and this is a strong asset right now.
No, definitely. And just to say, I think I really agree with what Mudassar was saying. I think we need to, and I've spent years covering travel and culture and current affairs here, and we do need to have hope. The news is so full of negativity, of fear, and we've spent decades now of kind of breaking down borders through travel, through connecting with other cultures. We can't go backwards. But as you were saying, and rightly so, Marcello, this is the risk. I've been going out, as I have to as a journalist, in Dubai to do my reporting. I had to go to La Petite Maison on the first day they reopened, and it is, you do feel the risk, you feel the tension. As soon as you get into DIFC, my temperature is taken. I'll tell you a personal experience. So my temperature is taken with a gun, and it's already 38 degrees here. So it actually started beeping and the light turned red. And for a second I panicked and I said, look, I don't have a temperature, I'm actually healthy. And they said, no, it's because it's so hot. So I had to stand in the air conditioning. I had to do it again and everything was fine. I had to get it done again at the restaurant. I was given plastic gloves. Social distancing was adhered to. I went into the kitchen, obviously, for the video I was doing, and I was really impressed. I really was impressed. The same with Anantara the other day when I took a walk outside of my home on the Palm Jumeirah. They're trying very hard. I can't comment per se because I'm not, the Ministry of Health, but I know that Dubai is being extremely strict in reopening. The guidelines are very, very strict. There's fines for not wearing a mask, for not wearing gloves. Wearing gloves in restaurants and stuff. So I agree with what you're saying. They bear the biggest social responsibility. The hotels, even the fact that all the borders are closed pretty much so in the world right now, the hotels, as they're in this sort of initial opening stage, bear the brunt of the responsibility. They need to make people feel happy and comfortable and at ease, knowing that they can go out again. The restaurants, the hospitality industry, I mean, they're also on the front lines, you know, and I agree with that. I don't know if, you know, like Mudassar, like Rana and Mudassar were saying, we are in the unknown. We're literally in uncharted territories. And I think we also have to kind of have, you know, grow the sense of compassion, because while everyone's trying to stick to guidelines as best as possible, you know, 9 restaurants were shut in Dubai last week because during Ramadan they were opened, but then, you know, sometimes when alcohol is served and then people don't abide by social distancing guidelines, excuse me, they were shut immediately, which I thought was, you know, quite impressive. So we're reopening, but, you know, only if people really follow the rules. But I agree. They really, I think through communication, as we're doing right now, through communication, through the right articles, through the right, you know, video, social media, whatever, all these different platforms, as Rana was saying, we need to make sure that there's a real social responsibility. It's not an individualistic, it's not an individualistic society. We're more collectively connected, even though we're not actually connected. You know, I'm holding you on my computer at the moment, but we're probably more connected than ever. And sorry if that got off track, but that's what I feel, yeah, from being here during the reopening of Dubai.
No, don't worry. I think it's very interesting to have also these different gradual approaches. You're in the reopening, of course. UK is struggling, so is Madrid, where UNWTO is based. Before going back to Rana with a little improvised, really work assignment as we're here. I hope that Mudassar also can help us getting back on track, because we're right on track, Rebecca. Don't worry about that. Mudassar, really continuing that question, is this an opportunity, which you see from a communications perspective? Our challenge always from where we come from, tourism, institutions, promotion, and so on, is really to, for us at least at the World Tourism Organization, is to get tourism out of the tourism segment. I always say you don't have to talk about tourism to talk about tourism. Now we're speaking about seizing opportunities, catalyzing changes, etc. Do we have here an opportunity down the line for really the broader public beyond the tourism segment, beyond the pullout of the Sunday paper, to understand what tourism really is? Or is it just my fantasy, wishful thinking?
Absolutely. Look, communicating is really the only thing we can do right now. So, and we're all communicating, whether we're not communicating or communicating, if you know what I mean, right? So there is a void, and we need to fill it with positive messaging, because it's all we can do right now.
That's true.
Right. This is a good time. Now, of course, there is a conversation about bailouts, about government intervention in countries like Italy, in countries, well, all over the world, really. And people are beginning to understand the vital role that tourism plays in these economies, not just in the preservation of culture, arts, and history, but also in the promotion of unique trades, in the promotion of, in patronizing dying traditions. You know, there are many traditions or industries that are linked to tourism, that support the broader economy, that support the heritage of a country, that would not survive if it weren't for tourists. So I think that communicating these sorts of things right now is, of course, very important in the context of a bailout. But at the same time, I do think communicating these things in the context of what the future looks like, is at the sort of post-COVID world that we want to inhabit. What does that world look like? How does that world protect the environment? How does that world support the economy? How does that world bring people closer together? Well, actually, you're right, Marcelo. Tourism is a part of answering all those big picture questions beyond the issue of tourism. So actually, it's a very, very good idea for us to be communicating in this way.
That's true.
Thank you, Mudassar. Rana, I gave you the heads up.
Yes.
A little, really, for our audience. We agree. All of us agree here. We're here convinced because we know of the strength of the sector, the importance, And I think nobody could disagree with what Mudassar just explained. Now, you in the real world, everybody's in the real world, but imagine yourself, you have to pitch this story to an editor. And I'm not talking travel, I'm talking legacy media, because I think everybody and all the tourism officials who are participating today and beyond this webinar can draw some lesson out of it. For us, it's important. How do I make this? How do I convey this story? The true message outside. How do I really pitch successfully to position a tourism story when, of course, the headlines are so negative, the human tragedies are so terrible, the economic impact, the social ripple effects. I mean, we know that, again, the negative stories. How would you package it?
Okay, so I would like to add on some points to what Mudathir said, and I think this would be part of the answer too. Nowadays, people on digital platforms, they want to do good. They want to do good in general. They want to spread the positivity, because there's no option no more to spread negativity. Negativity doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't give us anything. So doing good, if we can connect it to tourism, I think this would be a very, very good approach. What do I mean by do good? I mean, like, we want to help out. People want to reach out to help out now. So this can be a big part of creating campaigns to help the tourism, to help this sector. So, for example, let me simplify more. We want to work on campaigns on how to help people who work in tourism. We want to go back to healing solutions, as you were promoting. We want to get the good out, but practically. So therefore, what we can do is, like what Mudassir said, we can sell cultures. We can tell people that nowadays we want to sell cultures, not let's say products, not destinations. We want to feel the warmth of different cultures. I think these messages will reach out to people much more effectively than what we used to do before. Okay, so I think this could be the content of any let's say any story I'm going to deliver through my different platforms. So doing good and selling cultures is, of course, crucial. I think we should start collaborating together. We should send out messages that we need collaboration. We need people to get together. We need to find solutions. I mean, with Healing Solutions campaign that you have done, there are so many innovators, there are so many entrepreneurs that want to bring out their ideas, want to say what they have. So I think what has to be done now is to concentrate on these bullet points, doing good and how we can connect it to tourism, and how this doing good in people can help to, let's say, help people in tourism get out of the crisis itself, try to sell cultures and the warmth of cultures, and do some kind of campaigns on or competitions, or help entrepreneurs to get their innovation or innovative ideas out. And the last message is that we need to all collaborate together on different platforms. That's one thing. The other thing is, I think my job nowadays is to recorrect the misinformation that we get through social media. I mean, people have been spreading, oh my God, a lot of rumors about what's going on, a lot of information that I don't know where they get it from. And yet, I think that's why I go to work every day in the morning till now, is to go to TV and tell people, hey, that's not right. We need to filter our sources. We need to be more aware as audience what to listen to and what not to listen to. I hope I didn't mix you up.
No, it's fine. This is all part of the, I mean, I'm always, this is my non-digital, this is my word cloud with the main idea so far. So don't worry.
There are so many ideas, Marcelo. I think there are so many ideas and people are willing to do something. I mean, maybe before this COVID-19 thing, we were so, I don't want to say lazy, but we were thinking, oh, materialistic. I want to work to get the money. I want to work to do this. I want to work to travel. But now I think the globe, everyone around the world wants to collaborate together, wants to spread the positivity.
Rana, briefly, going back to, as you said, the doing good. I like this selling or promoting. I don't like to say sell because no culture is on for sale really, but promoting a culture and not a product. If addressing really the tourism officials that we have from the region and beyond, listening to us, is this, would you recommend to really to pitch their tourism story like that? Is that an approach that would raise your editorial interest to cover tourism from another perspective, and also to cover tourism maybe outside of the tourism segment? Is that the way? Is that what you're saying?
Culture, the warmth of the culture, of course, plus the safety and the precautions. That's very important. But let's say precautions, safety, and then the culture, the warmth that you will feel, the positivity that you will feel, the happiness that you will feel. I mean, going out of this, people will be sick psychologically. We need to heal psychologically. So healing is not by visiting, I mean, a place, of course you would, but by feeling the warmth of the culture, feeling the vibes, feeling the atmosphere, feeling the interaction with nice, warm cultures, dealing with you in a nice way, things that you have missed in this period of time we are living in.
Yes, thank you. Rebecca, from your experience as well, of course, do you think, and what you've been observing now with this new situation, and what Dubai seems to be a bit ahead of what other destinations and countries will be going through in the coming weeks, of course, and hopefully, do you really see those wanting a need to promote tourism, their products or the visibility, really aware of this? Or do you think there might be I mean, this is of course really wishful thinking, that we want to take things from another angle, but really bottom line will be that the traditional marketing hard sell will gain the upper hand. What's your feeling on this?
You mean sort of the softer, I don't want to call it softer, because I believe that communicating through hope and positivity and joy and even love is also I think it should also be a hard power. Maybe we've misconstrued these terms, but yes, definitely there is, I agree that look, everywhere there's going to be the tendency to go back the way we once were. And you know, we were all on rapid speed, you know, kind of like in a washing machine. At least that's how my life was. And I loved traveling. I still love traveling. And just sort of to note, you know, kind of off of what Rana was just saying, I do believe it's a chance to collaborate. Having said that the digital landscape is important right now and will be important for the upcoming months and also years, I do strongly believe, especially having covered the art market so much around the Middle East and Africa most recently, we can never replace physicality, the sort of physical experience of a beautiful destination, a beautiful work of art, or having an iftar with people. You know, I mean, one reason Dubai is also reopened, UAE is reopened, is because we are in the holy month of Ramadan, and people need to see their families, obviously within sort of, you know, limited, within the social media constraints. I do want to be hopeful, mashallah, because I want to believe that that, you know, we can see this as a way to kind of bring people closer together, and that the hospitality industry can have a new message, hopefully, and that we do need to collaborate. I don't see another way forward, to be honest. Travel definitely in July or August is going to be very expensive, especially if we'll have, you know, spaces between each seat. I mean, I was reading up a lot on the new ways that we will be traveling, from tests to all sorts of things. So we really, I think that the message has to be compassionate. It has to be a compassionate message, an empathetic message. We need culture more than ever. I really believe that. And it is difficult. I mean, again, I've done a lot of these, you know, Zoom conferences, and a lot of it it's all on mostly art and culture, because that's what I've been covering. And the struggle is, how do we connect properly through these screens? Right now, this is what we have. But this is a time, I think, if we can look at it as a creative, as a positive time to strategize for when we can kind of balance screen time versus physical time, then we've achieved something, I think, and we can really use this time as a time of introspection. And I believe the hotel industry, the travel industry, whether you're going to the Maldives or, Amman resorts or Como, I've done countless different hotels I've worked with since I've lived in Dubai because everyone comes here. They're all redefining their messages about giving back, doing charity projects, helping those in need. I mean, and as Rana was saying, this is what the message needs to be. And I don't think, just to go back to your original question, is it going to be typical hard sell marketing? Yeah, I mean, I don't even know if the public wants that right now because we're all grieving still. We're all still in a state of mourning. I mean, even if, we laugh and joke sometimes, everybody, no matter, we've all been hurt at different levels, some people more than others, obviously. But we need another message. So I really do believe that the communication needs to change. It needs to be a compassionate communication right now because people they're hurting financially, they're hurting health-wise, they're hurting just psychologically. It's just quite a lot to take in. We've been in a state of lockdown for weeks, months now. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. We've been discussing where we think it might go. I like the empathetic messages, the hope, of course, breaking down borders or walls. Collaboration is key. These are the do's. Mudassar, now to the fun part. What are the don'ts? So what do we tell our tourism people while we're really going through the situation? What's the absolute not to do they should have on their list as they're trying to reinvent and to find a way out? Thank you.
Well, I think this is obviously going to vary massively, but some of the things that I think we need to do not assume things.
And sorry, Mudassar, maybe without, of course, naming names, but maybe you've come across some examples over the past weeks where you said, ouch, I see the intention, but this is not the time because what? Because it might go really against all the public sentiment that Rebecca just so really accurately described. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think this is, first of all, for the industry as a whole, do not think that things will return completely to the way that you wanted them to in the past. Be prepared. Do not find yourself in a position where you're not prepared for how things are going to turn out in the future. This is the most important lesson. So use this time to engage in forecasting, in planning, and creative ideas to think about how that might look. Also, I would say, don't find yourself in a position where you're competing over other organizations in a way that's not productive. So for instance, I think that it's too soon to launch that big marketing campaign that you wanted to launch in Europe, or it's too soon to launch that big advertising campaign that you wanted. It's too soon for these things. People are not ready. However, one thing that we should be doing, and I know you said what we shouldn't be doing, but I like to think in what we should. One of the things we should be doing is everyone is going to be talking about COVID recovery. Now, we need to link, the industry needs to link the financial recovery with personal recovery. And personal recovery is about new ideas, new experiences, and getting out there. If we're stuck in our apartments for 7 weeks at a time or for longer, recovering as human beings, travel, experience, and adventure has always been an integral part of one's recovery. So I think it's about understanding the linking kind of financial recovery to mental recovery and thinking about how we can put that out there. I hope that sort of answers your question, Marcelo.
I'm looking for the crystal ball. I'm here to listen, and maybe somebody is hiding the crystal ball, and then we get the answers that we're looking for. But I think, yes, I like another like common connecting a thread I've identified over these conversations is, yes, the personal angle. So really even the individual experience. Rebecca shared it before, entering a restaurant and getting the temperature taken, really bringing it down to a human dimension is very important. That's why, I mean, and Rana said it before, it's not a product, it's the culture. It's not a thing, it's something that we relate to. and maybe this helps communicating and transmitting it in another fashion. Very critical, and this would be like the final question before we open the floor also to our special guests who are there patiently waiting, and I would like them very much to comment on what they've heard so far, is the timing question. You said, when is the right time really to start from a really passive, reactive way of dealing with things to take a little, well, I wouldn't call it leap, but really dare to go forward. How do you, and Mudassar, please, what indicators, what variables do we have to watch out for to identify that if there is such a thing as an ideal timing? It's pretty much when you want to buy a smartphone, there's never a right time. The next model comes around the corner, right? Next month, and then you spend a lot of money, but okay, you deal with it. So what do we have to watch out for? What signs?
Well, I think from a communications perspective, we need to make sure that at the timing of your announcements are linked to some of the bigger announcements that your countries are making. I think that would be a place where I would start. So for instance, you know, we need to start incorporating. So for instance, from a British perspective, the tourism industry will need to start incorporating its messaging as and when the lockdown is being lifted, as and when money is being announced for COVID recovery, financial models, as and when the other industries are beginning to open up. So for instance, we have a huge health tourism industry. We also have, so that tourism, of course, isn't just about taking snaps at beautiful places. It's so many other reasons. So I think we need to be clever, and maybe each of the countries need to work, get their comms professionals to figure out that plan individually. What is happening in my country or internationally that I can peg my message to, you know? I would look out for those announcements and start slowly easing out. And I think it will vary, Marcelo, from country to country.
Of course, of course. Basma, I don't know if you would like to give the floor to our guests. I would very much like them to comment from their perspectives, and I think we have three very interesting angles. A journalist who's been covering also UNWTO during our past really important events, regional commissions, statutory meetings that we've had in both in Sharm el-Sheikh and in Cairo. Lamia, of course, we have a news agency, and we know that they really don't have time to waste, and they really need to be incredibly on top of it. That's one of my only regrets I've had for my journalist time, that I didn't pass through a news agency. I did many formats, but not the news agency. I think this really teaches you how to get out and how to focus on relevant and meaningful content for the broader audience. And then, of course, really from a more academic perspective, if it makes all sense, because we have to marry, of course, concepts with then the reality. Thank you. Basma, over to you.
Yes. First of all, I would like to comment on what Rebecca said, that we feel that we're all connected now. I've been saying this recently, that it really feels that we're all relatives now, discussing COVID-19, what to do, healing solutions, and also for you know, all the measures that the countries are taking, they're all relevant to each other. So I believe that we are looking forward to solutions, but to a new normal life in few weeks. I would like to give the floor, or virtual floor, to Dr. Ahmed Turkestani from Imam University in Saudi Arabia. Dr. Ahmed.
Thank you so much, Basma. Thank you, Marcelo. Thank you, everyone. Good afternoon to everyone. Very happy to be with you. And I've been so much enjoying the discussion and seeing how you're coming from the tourism industry and looking into this issue. Well, I think I was waiting, by the way, to hear the word health. I haven't heard it. You know, the governments and what they can do. No one talked about this, you know, with concentration. I think the issue comes down to the health specialists and what they're saying and what their requirements would be, because the industry will be immensely affected by the decisions taken during travel, during stay in hotels, because we're coming into an area that is not really known. I've seen reports and I read about what health measures are going to be taken in the future. This will decide what people will do and how they decide about this and what the risks might be in going out. You know, there is a balance between you need to go into, you know, to go on tourism and enjoy yourself, go out, especially after the lockdown. People are interested to go out. However, what the risk might be there. So again, the issue of communicating hope is very important, but I think we need also to slow down and not to rush, because rushing might give us a backlash. It's going to be, I hope it's not going to fire back in the minds of people. What I also need to hear is the role of social media and what social media can do, because it's affecting a lot of people. Many famous snappers on Snapchat, on Facebook, on Twitter, especially in my part of the world, in the Middle East, in Saudi Arabia in particular. Twitter is a very, very vital tool of communication, and therefore, what is there to say, and how, you know, very important and effective people are going to say in this regard. Timing, I think it will take time. So that's why when I said we don't need to rush, we need to wait until times comes, and also it will be gradual. It will not be overnight solution where tourism will come back again. However, I see, particularly in Saudi Arabia, that people, Muslims in general, would love to go back to Umrah, would love to go back to Mecca and Medina. And therefore, once the doors will be opened, you know, that people are trying to find ways now to sneak into Mecca and Medina and to pray there and to, you know, this is their interest. That's why I'd say that there is no problem there. However, the risk should be considered. And that's why the government is very keen to make sure that, you know, the atmosphere is very healthy and everyone will be safe. So it all boils down to decisions. I like the issue where Mudassir talks about how we perceive other people. And I think there is a problem with some politicians, world figures, who are really, you know, exchanging these accusations and you know, accusing this country or that country of spreading this virus. This is going to affect badly what people think of those people belonging to those countries, although they have nothing to do with that. You know, even if that is true, you know, what is my problem if I'm Chinese, or if I'm American, or if I'm from that country or that country? How would that be affecting, you know, the idea that I need to enjoy myself and go out and enjoy my time to go and travel? I think we need to emphasize the domestic tourism first. Once we build the trust, because as Rebecca was mentioning, now it's only possible to do domestic tourism within the UAE, and the same would be true for other countries as well. So we need to emphasize that once that is being built, people will start to travel outside. I know with the restrictions of travel and people have to be wearing, you know, all these masks and gloves, and they'd have to do so many precautions. Even the air industry is going to find it difficult to take all these measures and to apply what the ministries of health are requiring of them, but people will get back to that. You know, I myself find it very hard to listen to the health, reports on a daily basis. You know, I got tired of hearing all these cases coming out and the deaths and all of these things. So people are looking for hope naturally. However, we need to rebuild that by final examples. Let me just complete. I don't want to take the time with others needing to of course, contribute to this. But I say we need real examples. People who are traveling and they're finding it very easy to travel. They are safe. They enjoy themselves, without any problem. That's where you need to show real examples of people that are known to the masses, who can build that confidence in tourism again. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Very, you're giving us a really some direction to the second round, where we go back to our panelists. Just briefly commenting before we move on, Basma, if you allow. Of course, when we talk about generating trust, and trust really as a strong, really now, not as a soft power within all the circumstances that we're talking about. But of course, always following health advice, that's absolutely true. And the authorities, we're not the experts. We have to follow really their expertise to have true and relevant decision making. Definitely, there is no rush, although we have the human tendency to walk out and to get together. And if something has shown, we've learned something out of this crisis and being confined, is how important really human contact is. And we believe in UNWTO that really tourism as the people-to-people sector par excellence is ideally suited really to convey this message of trust. I wrote down, yes, the info tiredness. We went from infodemic to getting tired of really being overexposed to so many negative news. Not that they don't matter, but we need to balance out if we really think of the recipients of these informations, and then the examples of new travel, as we might call it, really that travel will be and is possible again, and we humanize it again. I could go on, but I want to take up time. Just really a little comment in between, and Basma, if you can pass on the floor.
I agree. I agree with you, Marcelo. I mean, we're waiting for to travel again. We with the new measures, and I like what you mentioned, that you shared with us a quote before, that travel is the only thing you buy that makes you richer. It's true. I mean, we've been experiencing virtual traveling, these days, but still we need, we're humans. We want to go out. We want the real experience. We have now Mr. Badr Al-Sharhan from Kuwait Press Agency. Mr. Badr.
Yes, hi. Thank you very much. I'm honored to be here. Let me start with a little story back to Mudassir's example. We have a friend in our agency. He's a Jordanian, and he was telling this story about this Jordanian. I guess he was a teenager, and I think one of his parents originated from Asia, so he looks like a Chinese guy. So he got bullied all the time since this crisis broke out. So that says how crucial is people perceiving others based on perhaps the way they look. Now back to the tourism and domestic tourism. back home, we are in Kuwait, the government is mobilizing and really occupying many of the hotel's rooms to be used for quarantine. So that's a no for domestic tourism, of course. It's trying to use all the resources it can to contain this huge amount of people. Needs to be isolated and quarantined. And it does need a lot of time to make people trust that those places are safe to live in again. Now, our role as journalists here in Kuwait or anywhere else in this vast world, be it virtually or physically, is to rebuild this trust that those people had in this industry. And I think it's like a parallel paths. The tourism industry itself needs to encourage people that my place is safe and I'm taking those precautions, 1, 2, 3. You need to be, we are implementing the social distancing, physical distancing, that is. We have prepared clean places. We have prepared sanitizers, wet wipes, and masks, gloves, and so on. And we, as journalists, we need to promote this healthy message. We need to rebuild this trust among travelers, tourists, that those places are really safe. Which brings me back to what Dr. Turkestani has said. The social media persons, they have a lot of responsibility to play, promoting this trust aspect, because we are dealing with humans, and many of those humans, maybe among us, among the panelists, have their bags packed already, ready to travel, maybe. So it's really a message of trust. I can't emphasize how trust is crucial here to regain the confidence of people in this tourism industry. Rumors have been affecting the message that comes from the reliable sources, and we have been battling those rumors with nails and teeth. It's been rumor mongers have been spreading those rumors every day, posting false photos, posting false videos, and it's us, the journalists, the tourism industry owners that have this responsibility to dismiss those rumors, and indeed to clarify to the public and to those industry owners that those things are incorrect, that those things are affecting your industry, and we need to join hands in order to defeat them. We can't go solo. We need to join hands, me and you, in order to regain the confidence of those people, to restore life in domestically and indeed abroad.
Thank you so much. I'm also taking notes, and after the Lamia speaks, and Basma, I don't know if you want to comment on what Mr. Badr just shared with us, but I'm taking several cues for the other round from both, of course, from so far from Dr. Turkestani and also from Kuwait. Thank you, Basma.
Yes, going back to what Mr. Badr was saying, it's true. I mean, so many people have been questioning, is it safe to go back to these hotels that were working as quarantines, and also I don't know about journalists, but many hotels chose not to reveal their name when news is published about quarantines and some tourism industries in the region. So we'll continue this discussion right after our dear friend and loyal friend to the world tourism, Ms. Lamia Mouafi. Ms. Lamia.
Hi, Basma. Hi, Marcelo. I'm very proud to join this nice group. I am fascinated with tourism. I always like to travel. This COVID-19 affects us very, very badly. It affects the whole world. But here in Egypt, we are trying to support tourism sector. If you speak about COVID-19 and tourism sector here in Egypt, we must speak first about the government, how the government deal with this crisis. We must speak about private sector, the owners of the hotel and how they deal with it. We must speak about the employees. The employees are suffering very, very much from this crisis, and how the government can coordinate all this in order so life can go on. You know that in year 2019 that tourism in Egypt is recovery and is going better. And Marcelo have been here in Sharm el-Sheikh, and you also, Basma, you're here in Sharm el-Sheikh, and you see by yourself how many tourists we are having the last years. And World Tourism Organization support Egypt very good in the last years. But suddenly COVID-19 come in and all our dreams are lashes. But the government doing very, very well in this point. It says, for example, our president say, okay, you know that we are losing $1 billion every month from this COVID disease and its impact on tourism. We have 3 million people working in the tourism sector. They are affected, but the president say we have to health for people and for tourists is a priority for us. Okay, economy is affected, but the health of tourists and the Egyptian is in the first priority. We stop the flights, airplanes. We close the hotels. We close the museums. We close everything in order to prevent people from getting ill from this disease. But the sector is suffering. We cannot say it's not suffering. No, it's suffering very bad. But the government put a number of major precautions and number of measures taken by the Egyptian government in order to decrease the impact of coronavirus on tourism sector. For example, the owners of the hotels cannot pay real estate taxes for 6 months, and also we postponed the payment of dues for 3 months. Also, the Central Bank of Egypt provide country banks to allow low interest rate finance to hotel. And about the employees, we say no hotel is allowing to say to the employees, you go and you stay home and you're not going to take your salary. No, this is a red line. We are not allowing anybody to harm employees, because after this you need these employees again to come back and work in the tourism sector. So we can
You're breaking up, I think, Lamia. I think
Lamia, we can't hear you.
You'll stay at home and family will suffer. No, this is
yes. I think.
Is it good now?
Sorry, Lamia. Now it's breaking up. I don't know if you can try again. If not, we move on and you try to reset the connection, please. Give it a try. Let's give Lamia the floor. Yes.
Yes. Can you hear me well now?
It's not.
Is it good now?
It comes and goes.
It's
Maybe you should, by experience, and then we move on. It's but we've taken note. I mean, I think I got the main idea of what you were saying. Of course, it's the and I think this marries very good to matches very good with the human aspect that was mentioned before. Because
Is it
there
good
is
now? Or something bad or the sound?
it is a bit better. But Lami, if I may take back the floor,
It's
and
much
based
better?
on what you said, focusing on, of course, that we see it's, and speaking of Egypt, it's the tip of the pyramid. You see the tip of the pyramid, which is, of course, the hotels, the accommodation, the services provided along the tourism value chain. But underneath, you have real people. And you have real people, and this has, of course, a social dimension, which is huge. And I think this is a good complement, of course, to the message of hope and of empathy and of the social responsibility that tourism can really have. Because one of my questions, listening before to Badr Al-Shahan from Kuwait, and going back to one of our earlier remarks, is how do we de-trivialize tourism? Not to tourism for it to become like a boring topic, like, I don't know, fiscal policy, which is important, but it's rather dull. But the real power of tourism, an inspiring sector, but also a sector which can do so much good. And maybe the social dimension is still largely unknown to many people. Again, the digital reality keeps coming up and again and again. Social media was mentioned again by everybody. So bringing back the conversation back to our panelists, and also looking at time, we are shy under 20 minutes from having to come to an end of this. I would like to go think of another sort of collaboration. We talked about collaboration within the sector is important. We mentioned the social dimension, of course, the message of hope, changing the angle, shifting the lens from product to culture, the human dimension, the huge social ripple effects that Lamia was referring to, which are true for many countries across the world. Now, if we're talking about collaboration, and I don't know if we can think about this on a regional level, does this crisis also does it have the potential to bring the region also closer together? And I would like to Mudassar to have a first go at replying, because we see this again on an individual level, with our peers, with our friends, with people we want to engage. Maybe all of us meeting now virtually, I would very much look forward to meeting each and every one of you in person and to continue this conversation. Now, if we think of tourism going beyond tourism, because it has so much power, does it have a regional dimension beyond tourism as well? Thinking of the Middle East. You're muted. No, okay.
Okay, perfect. This is an interesting question for me as a Brit. I've been obsessing about how we can get closer to our neighbors for a very long time, and I do hope that tourism can do that. Regionally, I think in the Middle East, this is a good opportunity for, look, I go back to the most powerful thing we can do now is to tell individual stories. And I think once people start telling their individual stories of the impact of tourism, or the lack of impact of tourism is having on families, on people, on artisans, on craftspeople, then I think that you will enable an environment where people can relate to each other more easily. And I think that is the basis of regional cooperation. But we forget that, I mean, of course, state actors are very important, and the work that they do is very important in enabling regional collaboration. But people-to-people dialogue is something that is something that tourism brings to the table. And I think think that this might be an interesting. I also think that some certain countries in the region might be willing to explore or set up forums to see how tourism might impact particular aspects of the industry. Of course, you have hotel groups across, various divides. You have, other operators across various divides. So I think that will probably begin to happen. It's probably a good thing.
Thank you. Thank you. This was, of course, also referring to earlier remarks made by you. Also, I believe Dr. Turkistani mentioned it, that we are also seeing some signals, of course, trying to profile certain countries, nations, people, etc. In this context. And this might be a counterbalancing force. Another, again, recurring topic coming back again, and the first one to mention it was actually, I hear some music. We have a soundtrack. No, it's gone. Nice music, but I think it's the wrong forum for this at the moment. It's culture. It's culture, but it's nice. Rebecca, you were the first one to mention the digital dimension. And we had it again. Dr. Turkistani mentioned the power of Twitter and the Snapchat, the social influences. Of course, true for Saudi Arabia and for many other countries. Badr al-Sharan as well, in terms of course, we're talking people to people. So what is more people to people nowadays than social? So if you could, again, the 3-4 main ideas, how the digital tools can help us again come back, communicating better. Yeah.
Well, I think just to re-emphasize the importance of trust. That's something that Badr also underlined. I think more than ever, especially luxury industry, whatever you're talking about, we revolve. Although I am a writer and I do a lot of public speaking, but we're in a very image-based world, and that obviously does include text, but I think it's really, and we trust those images that we see. We trust the writings that we see, but we see first the image. And I think that it's really important more than ever that there is this trust that is that's grown. And how do you build trust with a brand? How do you rebuild the trust when so much trust has been lost in the world that we are in at the moment? And I think, especially if you're going to go straight to focus on luxury marketing and on what travel is in the luxury sector, which has taken probably the biggest hit, people are going to be drawn, I think, to particular figures. As you said, I think it will be really important when travel starts going up, travel, whether it be domestic, whether it even be going out to the restaurants. I was alone at La Petite Maison and I had to do this video, and afterwards everyone said, oh, how was it? And were you comfortable? And so there is a duty, an obligation, I think, with certain individuals. They could be public figures who already have a trust, to have this following, an authentic voice. It's really important that it stays authentic. And this is probably for a longer conversation to kind of go into details of what does trust mean and what does authenticity mean. But I think more than ever, people are going to gear towards a brand that has a strong social media presence, Twitter, Instagram. I won't comment on TikTok because I'm not the best user, but obviously there's there as well. And that's sending out the right messages. So I do agree that this is more and more important. How do you ensure that you're sending out the right messages? Again, going back to where, hospitality travel is a service related and is a service oriented industry. It needs to be authentic. It should not be a hard sell. And there should be beauty. I really believe in the power of beauty. Dostoevsky wrote in one of his, I forget which book, but beauty will save the world. It sounds quite a fluffy and maybe even frivolous comment to make right now, but I do believe we need beauty more than ever. And beauty comes from travel, comes from culture, comes from beautiful images. So even now, maybe we can't travel to Venice. I can't even travel really to Oman, which is a country I absolutely love. I've traveled there a lot. I can't even travel to Saudi Arabia, and I enjoyed so many trips to Al Ula before this happened. Saudi was opening. There's so much promise in the travel industry in Saudi. All the hotels were starting. But if we can find ways that we are capitalizing on past experience, making it sort of digitally relevant with the right tools, you know, beautiful images, strong messages that relay hope, empathy, compassion, but also history. I think facts, art history, whether it be history, art history about sort of the, you know, ancient times to the present to modern history. I think that's really important, and I think that we can use all of this to build trust with certain brands and with countries. I think, you know, world, you know, ministries that are having to deal with travel in their countries need to really think about how culture, what are their important, what are the bullet points that that decide upon, or that reveal what their particular cultural attributes are, and how can those best be communicated on a digital level in the meantime, while we slowly adapt to this the new normal, as the phrase is being called.
Yeah.
Mudassar, Rebecca mentioned Saudi Arabia a couple of times. Not only is our regional director Basma from there, we have also Dr. Turkistani, and I understand that your company, you have an office in Saudi, you've worked there, and we've all witnessed really the interesting shift in economic development policy of Saudi Arabia, embracing tourism, diversifying their economy through tourism with huge effort and sacrifice, and coronavirus hit. But maybe still, since this is really in the, I mean, the forming and the finding their way, is this also an opportunity? Maybe could a situation going, Saudi Arabia, the situation they're confronting, be there a huge opportunity, because they're really starting to change the gears in their economic tourism policy, and interiorizing all of this, maybe an advantage versus other countries who have really to rethink and restructure a lot?
Well, I think when we talk about tourism in Saudi Arabia, as Dr. Turkistani pointed out, there is, of course, the religious tourism piece, which is by far the largest tourism piece in Saudi Arabia, which, of course, has been quite effective, you know, and I'm not sure for how long, you know, how long that will take, and there is a debate on that, but it seems like in the foreseeable future. And I think there is also a debate around the Hajj. I don't know if a final decision has been made, but so that's, of course, a sector that has you know, been hurt, and there might be some scope for it reinventing and rethinking that. Now, the other more traditional tourism sector in Saudi is very, very exciting. I'm a regular visitor to Saudi Arabia, and I'm so excited about the opening up of the country in tourism. I still haven't, I want to visit places like Madinah and Saleh and a lot of these places that are opening up that I haven't been able to visit. I think there is an opportunity, Marcelo. I think you're absolutely right. In Saudi, there is an opportunity. Not enough people know about these places. Not enough people know that they exist. And the good news is that the economy in Saudi won't necessarily take a huge hit, because not many people were going there in the first place. They're just opening these places up. So I think there is a very interesting opportunity to tell more people about these places, because frankly, not a lot of people know these places exist. Even I spend a lot of time in Jeddah, and Jeddah has some incredible museums. And it surprises me that friends of mine that go to Mecca and Medina often don't even go to Jeddah and see the beauty that Jeddah has to offer and the cultural heritage that Jeddah has to offer. So on that note, I think there is a communications message to people that go for religious tourism to pursue more general tourism. And also there is an opportunity to talk about tourism more broadly within that context.
Could I add one thing on?
Yes, of course, of course.
Just a really quick detail, and it was just on Al Ula, which is, you know, I really was privileged now to go many, many times, but it was almost serendipitous, because so they've employed a lot of Al Ula residents. You know, they've given jobs to people that were living in the Al Ula county to learn about the history of Medina Saleh, you know, which is also translated as Hegra, of Elephant Rock, of all these ancient tombs, and they've actually created, they received training in Madrid at Factum to create a digital record of local rock art, and that's actually going to be launched soon. And it, you know, incorporates a mix of sort of VR and a variety of different portals. And it's amazing, because when they were doing this, they didn't realize COVID was going to hit. But I just wrote an article a few weeks ago for Arab News, precisely about, if you're itching to travel, if you really wanted to get to Alula, which was, they had Winter Tentura, Bocelli was there. There's all this stuff going on, absolutely stunning. Really was the cradle of civilization for a long time. Is that these residents have received training to now digitalize and open it up to the rest of the world. So while you can't get there, that's what I'm saying. There is, and I agree, Mudassir, there's an opportunity now to strategize for the future. And so in a way, this period, through a program like this that Jameel Art Center, they sponsored in part, not only has employed local residents, but it's also giving knowledge and education about the culture of Alula to the rest of the world at the perfect time. I just thought I would add that because it just was
no,
nice.
it's good. It's good.
Yeah.
Thank you. We have 5 minutes left. I still want to
If the sound is back, can I add something?
You have 1 minute strictly, Lamia. But yes, you were kicked out of the system. Come back. Yes.
Okay, let me end by saying that we are opening domestic tourism here in Egypt. Yesterday, it was the decision for the Prime Minister that we are going to open domestic tourism here in Egypt, and hotels are going to work. And
You're breaking up again, I'm afraid.
I'm sorry.
Lamia.
Marcelo,
okay.
okay. May I say
yes,
something?
Of course, for Kyrgyzstani. Yes, of course.
Thank you so much. Since we talked about Saudi Arabia and so many things in there, Saudi Arabia is very rich in all its regions, by the way. It's a huge country. We have also sites in the eastern region, in the southern region, everywhere. So in the central region as well, Riyadh and its surroundings. The idea is what the ministries of tourism in the Arab countries and the Middle Eastern countries are doing in order to plan for the future. That's something that also we need to hear from anyone from there. And I'm sure that, for example, in Saudi Arabia, there are big plans. If you go to the website of the Ministry of Tourism in Saudi Arabia, you'll find that 70 pages about media, tourism media, and it's important in how we communicate tourism to the people and to the world at large. So the point is, we need to plan strategies. We have heard so many great ideas today, but this has to be all incorporated into a great strategy that every country has to do in order to plan for the after COVID-19.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Turkistani. And of course, I was going to add to what Mudassir said before. And this is an approach. It's a cross-fertilization, of course. If we have consumers visiting a certain type of destination, of course, they need and can be sensitized towards others. And this is valid for Saudi and for many other countries. So we don't want to focus on just one country. We would like to have takeaways for all of them. Now, we have the message of hope. We have, and I wrote up the sentence, which I would claim to be my own, was the tourism narrative to be rooted in hope. I like that very much. I think it was you, Rebecca, before. So we have the hope element, we have the human angle, we have, of course, the digital vehicle to transmit that message. Rana, 1 minute only, because we need to come to an end and we need to wrap this up quickly. What's your next tourism story going to be?
Well, actually, I have a plan after this panel. I'm very happy to hear all the talk that I've been hearing from Dr. Ahmed and Mr. Badr and Lamia, Rebecca, and Mudassir. I think I'll say what's my plan personally as a TV presenter, as an influencer. I'll be concentrating on campaigns about individuals, about positivity, on how to help other people in the era of tourism. I'm going to talk about heritage. I'm going to talk about culture. I'm going to be more realistic. We need more passion. We need more warmth. So I think this would be my next story. I'll be more passionate about every single information I give out, and I'll be trying to transmit individual stories to the audience.
Thank you. Thank you
for giving me those beautiful vibes.
I've learned a lot. I will pass on the floor back to my colleague and friend
and sorry, very
Basma.
sorry, and health.
Yes.
And health.
And health, of course.
Which is very important because Dr. Ahmed said
yeah,
so.
Dr. Turkestani reminded us, absolutely. Yeah. Before I pass on the floor now back to Basma to wrap this up, I've been going through the questions that were shared by our listeners. We're definitely having write-ups of all these webinars, and we will have a small publication shedding light on all the different regions that Europe, Middle East, of course, Africa, Asia Pacific, and Americas. We're having the last of these series of webinars this coming Thursday in Spanish and Espanol, but for the Americas. And that will hopefully give us an overview. It's not scientific, it's really evidence-based and really based on these discussions, but we see commonalities. So I've learned a lot. As I said, I try to listen first and then I speak and I weave it into my day job. And Basma, you have exactly 1 minute left so that we're right on time to bring this to an end. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcelo. Well, I just want to thank everyone and, you know, to say that, you know, this is a global crisis. It had affected every single country. We've been discussing it on a regional level, but we're part of, you know, one planet, one world, and one concern. And through history, tourism has proved that it's a resilient sector. I believe it will rebound in a fairly good time. If you allow me, I would like to also quote the Secretary General of the United Nations in his recent article. We must act now to tackle the coronavirus globally for all of our sakes. We will be there together. And also, Marcelo, if I would like to thank you in front of also everyone, you know, for thank you and your team. You've been a great help for all of us at the UNWTO, and you have proven to be our cover page, you know, as communicating to the world. Thank you.
Marcelo, can I just say one thing? I'm going to take a selfie now. So to start with, on my social media platform, okay? Okay. So this is the first thing I'm going to do. So can you see that?
You can see that.
So that's the start.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, again. Thank you, Rana. Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, Mudassar. Thank you, of course, Lamia. You came back.
I'm sorry.
You're a persistent woman. You'll come back. I know that.
I'm sorry.
Dr. Turkestani, and of course, Badr Salman. We trust to see you again in the flesh and sometime soon. Thank you very much.
إلى اللقاء.
إلى اللقاء. Bye bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you.